morning, my name is Kashti Dignam and I'm here to look at the energies this week on the 26th of January 2026 for today's Monday's Musings. I noticed that whenever I introduce myself or this video, I tend to move around. A lot. I'm keeping my hands in my lap at the moment because I express a lot with my hands. And I'm fully aware that when I start to tap into energy, when I start to feel the change of energy, my body shifts and moves around. And I share that. Why do I share that? Because it's relevant. Why do we share what we share this week? To ensure that it is relevant, but to be consciously open to the fact that it's relevant also. So many things are occurring. Thank you. So many things are coming in for us to see and to vie for our attention. What I can see in my mind's eye is a maiden that has almost thrown her handkerchief on the ground, surrendered, the divine feminine that has surrendered and is now having her attention fought for in many different ways. Now, what I do see is that in a relationship level as well. So you may find this week there are certain aspects of how we connect to each other that can almost become like a triangle, a mismatch communication type energy where it is more than just you and one other person in a relationship, which if that's what you've signed up for, great. If not this week, that's going to come to the forefront as we start to prepare and lead into the Leo full moon, the end of this weekend. Yes, of course, the end of this weekend. However, I digress. Lots of energy coming in to vie for our affection. Recognizing our attention is our affection. When we give something our focus, we are saying it is worthy of our energy, of our thoughts, of our emotions, of our love, of our response, of our physical receptivity and conception with. Now, that's not to say we deny the things that are happening around us, but there needs to be more conscious knowing what we're doing when we're focusing on certain aspects. Why is that important? Well, as I've said, when energy starts to shift and change, my body starts to feel it, to move with it. And the more we can be aware of these subtle changes, the more we can first and foremost, thank you, see how far we've come, but where we could be headed before it actually occurs. There's this big thing at the moment that Neptune has gone into Aries, which it has today. And I've written about it myself as well, because it is quite profound. This position that we find ourselves in on many levels, not just as astrologically, but many levels, hasn't been this way for over 100 years. I think it's about 130 years it hasn't been this way. And the last time these things were playing out, shall we say, there was revolution. You know, think of the American Civil War and things like that. But the invitation this week is, as soon as we feel a shift in the energy, to sense into that. To allow our body to respond, to know that our body is responding, to be fully aware of that. And from there, decide how we're going to act. So yes, whilst things are rising that have been in our energetic template for some time, they are rising to be seen from a different level of consciousness. And that is what we have gained. Over the time period, we have been repeating certain lessons, which will be individual for us all. We're all going through it in our own way. Over the time period of this momentum of repetition and cycles and lessons, particularly over the last 14 years when this placement was first in Pisces, not first, but originally in Pisces, there has been an opportunity to gain perspective. Not always of the situations around us, wouldn't that be lovely, right? But definitely of ourselves within them. And it's that awareness that's going to help us decide whether or not we take all of this familiar energy and create a different design and template now. We are being supported. There's a lot out there as well about how there are different, I think there's 5 personal planets, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure there's about 5 personal planets in Aquarius. What does that mean? Well, it's the visionary, right? It's the humanitarian. It's the ability to see things greater than they are. And this is where I come back to looking at the energies that are vying for our affection and attention this week, particularly our own old stories. Yes, we are moving more into a warrior-like energy. Yes, we are moving into the fire horse. We are also being guided to really feel into what that means. On the surface level, yes, of course, there are things playing themselves out that are very repetitive, very familiar, and there can be a real lack of hope at the moment. I mean, on the micro, right? Today's video was supposed to be done yesterday because today I was supposed to be having my false teeth back. That hasn't happened because of the cycles that I'm going through. My body has felt drained and reacted to that, so I am unable to health-wise have that done. So my whole theory of getting my power back on the day that Neptune goes into Aries, whilst there was potential there, has changed. Now it is planned that I will get my teeth back on the 2nd of February, which is Imbolc. And that feels important to mention. Imbolc is not spring, okay? Imbolc is not spring. Imbolc is the whisper of spring. There's a lot happening and a lot shifting or potentially about to happen and shift, but think more spring equinox, think more Aries, April type energy as well. From now until then, it's seeds of potential, and it's really important to recognize the difference. It's important to feel the shift in our bodies when the energy changes rather than run ahead. You know, there's a difference between young warrior mentality and or emperor mentality rather that we're seeing play out, and you know, those that have been in war, those that have walked the path, those that have experienced what is going on. Very rarely do they rush head in. Okay, they watch, they observe, and they know when to act, and that's the invitation we're being given over the next few weeks to really sense into that skill that we all have, we do all have. Wow, how do we have that? Our bodies. Look at what's vying for the attention of our bodies. Look at how well we're caring for our bodies. Look at the reactions within our bodies, and for the love of all that is holy, align with the body. It might be inconvenient. I wanted my teeth. I wanted my teeth to tie in actually with Neptune and Aries, because then it kind of gave it all meaning, right? A wonderful, wonderful insight into why everything that had happened. Much like the light that I'm struggling to adjust to in this room, having moved it round, that would have been artificial. So I've had to turn off all of the lights in my house apart from the window in front of me. The real light, which is radiating so much I can barely see the outline of my structure, but I can see the energy that's coming across, and that feels more important over the next few weeks rather than wanting structure and direction and dictation of what to fight for and when to feel into the essence of what fighting actually means. On the other side of fighting, it is love, choosing which it's not even a battlefield, which weapon is going to take you forward. Yes, love is a weapon. We all know that love can be used against us for, you know, the humanity that we see not quite playing out how we would love it to be for each other, for animals, for the world, for all of these things that we've longed to be part of and experience, relationships with ourselves, with each other. That's Aquarius also, right? That can be used and will be used as a weapon against us. How we choose to respond to that is going to determine the wars we end up facing. I just need to feel into that. Nothing else is added to that. That's not to say that everything that is happening is quote unquote our fault. And if you are still finding yourself in that mentality this week, there's a real opportunity to open your own heart, to really expand your own perception of how you see yourself in your life. Again, being aware of the energy that is vying for our attention. So I could end up going down a huge rabbit hole trying to almost explain that and what I'm trying to get across there. But if it resonates, it resonates. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And we are at that point. We are at that turning point of evolution now where we can decide to try and figure things out or trust our feelings. Now, turning points, that does not mean that one thing is going to happen and everything's going to shift. And that can be what we come up against this week as well. And almost disappointment. Neptune was in Aries. I thought that was it, like me with my teeth, right? I thought that was it. I thought things were going to start to shift and change and there was going to be this revolutionary moment. Oh, life is an ongoing journey. Evolution is an ongoing journey. If we believe there's going to be one rapture moment or one significant point in time that is going to change everything, that is going to be the same for us all, we have lost sight of the experience of life as a journey. Every single step that we take has the potential to be the turning point that we're seeking. Why is that important? Well, again, it's going back to, from that perspective, seeing how far we've come, seeing what we are focusing on and where we're going to go as a result of that, slowing things down, which can feel completely unnatural in Neptune Aries energy, can feel completely unnatural in everything that is happening around us. You're not slowing down your actions, you're slowing down your breathing, you're calming your nervous system, not placating, and there is a difference. You're calming your nervous system, you're expanding from within out, and then being more able to see everything that is occurring, to feel everything that is occurring, to add more potential to whatever action you then take. At the moment, it looks as if my teeth are going to be given back to me on the 2nd in bulk. However, I'm aware that's just the promise of a potential. I'm aware from now until then, depending on how my body reacts, will be when I am able to take that metaphorical symbolism of my own power back. At the moment, on the 2nd is also the same day I'm having my 2 kittens neutered. I'm aware of my own repetitive cycles and the draining impact that they're having on my body, and I'm aware of the potential choices I may have to make with that. I'm also aware that it's happening after a Leo full moon, within that energy. You know, with the 2 kittens and myself being a Leo, and those that know the strength card, this is on another level synchronistically. However, I'm also aware that's just potential. There's just signs, and I still have to get up, chop wood, carry water, do this video, cook dinner for myself and my husband, do the garden, go to work. Why am I sharing that? Because the biggest shift from Neptune in Pisces and Neptune going into Aries is all of those, myself included, that have been able to see the world from different perspectives over the last 14 years and a more spiritual mindset are being shown that the greatest action the spiritual warrior can take is action, not to get too caught up in what needs fixing, shifting, healing when the time is right, putting things into place to make sure that it's perfect, being so aware of signs and synchronicities that nothing happens and you write about it, which I've done, which you sit and write about it or record about it but not actually act on it. It is vital that we take the wisdom that is coming through and we apply it. An example, every month I'm in the local community in the market doing tarot readings and healings for donation, and every month I am sat there thinking to myself how my ancestors decades ago would have been burnt at the stake for this, and here I am sat in the open doing something that they have handed down to me freely. Now, whilst there is a lot more that needs to happen in that area as far as I'm concerned for it to be a normal part of everyday life for those that want it to be, it's a start. Because those before me made a start and endured what they endured, and I'm doing my part, and those that come after me will have an opportunity to develop theirs. What I'm getting at the moment as we lead into Imbolc, the promise of spring, is seed potential. What seeds have been planted? What seeds are being planted without your awareness? What are you tending to? How conscious are you of that as we lead into the full moon? Yes, we have Neptune in Aries. We have the full moon coming at the end of the week. Excuse me. And we also have Imbolc, which brings me on to my camera. I wonder if I can, hang on. Let me just see if I can bring that down. Yes, that's a little bit better. Okay, so now it's all kind of dark, but finding that balance, right? I wonder if I can turn that. Not really. Oh, my heart just growled then. Okay, so recognizing we are still in that space of the winter times as we lead into the promise of spring. So recognizing when there's a time to be out there, to be seen, to be bright, to be lively, illuminescent almost, and then there's still a time to come back in. I'm seeing a lot of people that want to be hermits at the moment, and you know, there being a reason and an explanation for that, or there almost being the perceived need to have a reason and explanation for that. There isn't one. If you feel you need to go within and top up and care for yourself, please do so, rather than acting from a place that isn't quite balanced enough to do so in a way that is beneficial to you and those around you. I do recognize that means playing with the pressure that we believe we may be under sometimes, and also grabbing what we can when we can, doing the best that we can when we can, to allow things to transition slowly, naturally. I was given the analogy today of seeing the delivery of a child as labour itself, when actually, of course, it isn't. You have the hopes of children, you have meeting the partner, you have the, you know, the actual conception, you have gestation, you have all the concerns and the worries and the fears and the plans for the future, you have every stretch mark that you gain, you have every inch around your waist, you have, you know, your milk coming in, your hormones fluctuating, you have every stage of labour, you have Braxton Hicks, you have nausea, you have, you know, all of these contractions, and then delivery. To say that delivery itself is childbirth is very disrespectful to the whole process. So this week, really looking at any perceived turning points, whether they happen or do not happen, as the minute aspect that they are in comparison to the whole situation that is occurring. This week with my own counselling session, we were feeling into compassionate resilience and the ideal protector, and I was given the image of the ocean, and the ocean showed me those who watch my videos regularly, I can say that with, you know, out even flinching. Actually, I can say that without flinching now, which is growth in itself. But the ocean showed me something that I was experiencing at that time as a drop of water in this vast ocean. And it wasn't in a downplaying way. It wasn't disrespecting what I was experiencing. It then showed me as the ocean and the emphasis that I choose to place on that drop. This week, it isn't about bypassing what is occurring. There's been enough of that. With Neptune in Pisces, there's been enough of that. But it isn't about drowning in our emotions and feelings either. We feel, we sense, we go into, we create. We feel, we sense, we go into, we create. It's an ongoing process. One of the biggest concerns this week is the pent up emotions that are occurring have no outlet. Find the outlet. Much as we're in the winter seasons, or the north, the hummingbird of my medicine wheel in particular, that's the hero's journey. That doesn't mean that we sit and do nothing. You know, it's not waiting for those things to fall into place. It is acting on them. If you feel well enough, stable enough, and want to be in the light of doing, then do. If you don't and you want to retreat and go within for a while, then go within. The emphasis here is the action must be aligned with where you're at. Is there anything else on that? Well, that's 18 minutes. So I'm going to take it now into the tarot reading for the week ahead, looking into the energies and how to best navigate them. And this is where I'm going to stop the Instagram video because of time restraints from the platform. And if you want to watch the rest, feel free to do so on YouTube, free. Just subscribe. And this is where the TikTok video will be starting again because of time restraints. So if you want to watch the beginning part, then please do so on YouTube. And if you've watched this initially on YouTube and you're here for the long haul, thank you. And yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so the deck that I'm going to use this week are the Lightseers Tarot by Chris Ann Donnelly. Now, I met Chris Ann in Canada, which was a dream of mine that I never thought would actually come to fruition. And not only did it, I now have so much wisdom that I've gained from that, but also things like the cards, the original cards from the creator, I have experienced something in its initial form before it's become popular. And this week we're going to really feel into that. We're going to acknowledge things that we have been aware of before the rest of the world. And it's not about acknowledging them and going, I told you so, or look at me. I mean, you can. Hey, Leo, full moon. You can. And you can allow yourself to have that. We can allow ourselves to have the egoic sensation of knowing that we were always aligned and where we needed to be, and be proud of that. But this week it is more about opening our heart to the fact that along the line we have been where we needed to be, and to be proud of that. Okay, so energies this week and how to best navigate them. So I'm being shown again, yes, you may get insights into when something is coming. You may get a guidance to attend something, or feel as if things are coming to a closure, and then all of a sudden they don't, or things change, plans change. The question is, do we? So again, the example of my teeth, how rigid are we? Can we continue to believe that we can force things just because we saw how something could be? It's one thing to see the potential of a situation, but it's up to that situation whether or not it wants to form that. And that goes with relationships, which is the other thing with the full moon, humanity, aspects that are unfolding, spirit, all of it. We can be aware of different outcomes, but it is up to the outcome itself, what it chooses to form and become. Okay. Energies this week and how to best navigate them. We have the King of Cups underneath the pack, and it's interesting. Probably can't see them with this camera. No, look, we have light. We have light in our hands. It's interesting. So I'm not going to hold the cards up to the camera because you're not going to be able to see them. So as I was looking at this card, I was looking outside my window, and I can see a blue garden light bulb hanging by a cup of tea, which is a bird feeder. And it straight away, the message that I got was to be with the light, just to sit with it, to play with it, to interact with the light. The light being messages, also spirit, also healing, creativity, intimacy, relationships, all these beautiful things that the Leo loves, that opens the heart. Be with them. Be curious. Play with them. Stop trying to figure things out. When we're trying to figure things out, it comes from a place of fear and control, particularly of ourselves. I feel it myself as well. How many artists out there that have never picked up a paintbrush? How many singers out there are doing so in their shower but never in front of people? All of these things that when the time's right. Well, the thing is with Hummingbird and with the North of the Medicine Wheel, with the hero's journey, part of the journey is to know that there is no perfect time, just right time, which is when we act. The time becomes right when we take that leap, when we move, when we allow our bodies to move, when we feel into the energy. And if it's enough to make us move, if it's enough to make us shift, to continue that dance of life, that dance of creativity, that dance, that flow, to continue that, to keep moving. This week there's a lot of spontaneity about as well, and recognizing the difference between spontaneity and scattered and unstructured. Chaos magic is a beautiful, beautiful thing, and it isn't to be controlled. It has its own rhythm and its own structure to it. The only way to feel and appreciate that is to really feel and appreciate that. Okay, it's our emotions. It's always been our emotions. And here we do have the King of Cups here. We do have the ability to act with our emotions rather than control them. And on this card, he's playing a sound bowl in the water. We are made majorly of water, and there's so many experiments out there that have shown the impact of sound on water. I do sound healing, and it can be quite impressive how sound can impact the cells because of the water in our body, how impressive it can be to have noises and the effect on our bodies as a result, but also to acknowledge that our thoughts are noise. The news is noise, the environment is noise, and being mindful, really, really bodyful, full bodily listening into what is going on, being aware of the impact on the body. And if we need to move away from a situation, giving ourselves permission to do that. You know, all elements are vital, all elements are important. So we need our thoughts. Don't get rid of your thoughts. We need our thoughts. We need air, right? We need ideas. We need inspiration. We need fire. We need passion. We need ambition and drive and sensuality. And, you know, we need emotions. We need to feel things and to sense into things, our intuition. And we need action. We need physical responses as well. The key this week is to keep them balanced, to know that you're creating the sound that your body hears, to have guardianship of that from a more sovereign masculine type energy rather than controlling energy. Yes, there's a lot going on in the world with a real emperor type feel to it, and there's a lot of well, we know what's going on in the world, right? What's going on for you? You may not be able to have an impact or believe you don't have an impact on what's going on the larger scheme, but on the micro you really, really do. So take stock of that. Recognize that the biggest war is your mind. The biggest war is how you react to something, and we are all being enticed into conflict that we're not always conscious of. Okay, it's like psychological priming on another level. Right, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I was just about to say we only have one major arcana for the week ahead, and it's the devil, but overall the Fool pops itself out. Can we see the devil from a different perspective? Can we see light from the multifaceted perspective that it is? We have artificial light, we have background light, we have overhead light, natural light, camera light. You know, shadow is light, it's a form of light. There are so many different versions of light, which means there are so many different versions of ourselves and ourselves out there. Can we see that differently? Is there anything else in a situation to be perceived, or has it outlived its, it's not my choice of word, but productivity? And I say it's not my choice of word, so I have resistance to that. So being aware of that, being with what we're being given and looking at our own judgments of that. So my judgment towards productivity is it goes against everything that I stand for, flow and ease and grace, but it kind of doesn't. It kind of can really empower that as well. So being aware of your own stickiness this week, and just expanding a little bit with a bit of joy, with a bit of joy towards yourself in the unraveling of who you are. Okay, so yes, I know we're at the tail end of the serpent, and yes, the serpent sheds her skin in one beautiful movement, but this is more of an unraveling now rather than a feeling, a fixing and a healing. This is a feeling. Okay, so it's just unravel. Move with the changes that are already happening, that have already occurred, and just allow them to gently nudge you forward. On the Monday, we have the Eight of Cups. She is moving forward. The feminine energy here, the creative, intuitive energy here is moving forward. It has mastered. She's left behind the singing bowl in the water, which can still be heard by the King of Cups and still be played by our actions. So she's left that behind. However, there's an echo. There's an echo of grief, there's an echo of sadness, there's an echo of old templates, old ways of seeing things and believing things that are just resounding through ourselves at the moment. Mastery isn't about controlling, it's not about getting rid of, it's about the infinite working with and alongside something. Okay, so that we learn from it and it learns from us, whether that's a relationship, whether that's the world, whether that's humanity, whether that's our own evolution and growth. It's not about controlling ourselves or our emotions here, but working with them so that they can teach us something, so that we can then create with them, so that they are more united, particularly on the Monday. You know, one of the biggest things with grief is when we believe we have to move on, when we have to get over something. I really feel that this week as I come into the it's my mother's anniversary of our passing on the 5th. So I can feel that. I can feel on a cellular level that at this point 5 years ago, my body would have started to know that things were changing and shifting and transitioning for me at a certain stage in my life. And it doesn't matter how much quote unquote work you do or how much you can be with something. The body knows the score, it remembers. Just having patience and compassion for that process, not to get rid of it. Oh, I just had a big flicker across my screen. Not to get rid of it, but to be aware that it still has something to show you, to teach you, to be heard from within you, particularly on the Monday. On the Tuesday, we have the Devil card. And on the Tuesday, there's the temptation to rush through. On the Monday, things have shifted, things have changed, or we want them to. And on the Tuesday, there's the temptation to rush through that. There's the invitation to break free from things that we believe are controlling us, restricting us, demanding from us. Being mindful whether or not the temptation to move away from it is because we are still under its power, still being manipulated by something. So when we desperately want something out of our life, it's because it can still have an impact on us and it's uncomfortable. Now that's natural. And obviously, a bit of common sense here, guys. I'm not suggesting abusive relationships are, good for the soul and to stay there. I'm not suggesting that. But if something can still have an impact on us, if we watch something and it still aggravates us, it still has a control over us, and the temptation could be to move away from it immediately. And if that's your thing, great, then do so. But come the Wednesday, there's an opportunity here to connect to the part of you that is being triggered by this, because there's wisdom in there. So this is shadow work one-on-one, right? There's wisdom in there. Now, there is a fine line with Neptune in Aries. We're not here to look at things from so many different angles. We do bugger all about it. Know that by looking at something, we are initiating an action, and follow that action through. So we can be aware that something triggers us and why it triggers us, but what's the opposite of that that we can then do in order to complete this scenario? How can we work with that? We see something that upsets us. Do we act out of that thing that upsets us? Do we walk away from that thing that upsets us? Or do we go within, see why it upsets us, and provide what we need that is being triggered and hasn't quite got the way to figure out how to be said or how to be spoken or heard? Because on the Wednesday we have the Two of Cups. On the Wednesday, this is about relationships, none more so than the one that we have with ourselves. So yes, externally things may make us think, oh, for God's sake, I can't believe I'm doing this again. God, can't believe I'm waiting for my teeth again. However, I know there's an emphasis here subconsciously for me about, in order to take my power back, I may very well, like my kittens on the full moon, have to consider different ways of working with my own womb, because it's draining me and it's having an impact on my body. Now, whether that means, like my kittens, I go down the sterilisation route, I'm not sure yet, and there's a high chance those dates could end up being changed again, or whether that just means I become more aware and responsible for that and take more time out when I'm going through that cycle. These cycles, this cycle in particular, I can remove by removing the cause, so to speak, but that in itself is going to have a knock-on effect. So this week, risk assessment, weigh it up. Removing the cause is going to have an effect. Are you ready for the effect? Or do you need to have space and time and compassion for the cause? Is there more there to gain and to learn? Only you can decide that. This is the ongoing balance. Why is this important? Because it helps you to really connect to doing your actions in alignment with your emotions. But they must be seen from a different perspective, because we have the Fool overall. Doesn't matter what's happening out there, if you continue, or we continue collectively to see, and that's important. There's no point pointing fingers this week, because we're all going through it in our own way. You might find someone's really negative and you're like, oh, I'm really positive, but actually you've been going through it too in your own way. We're all going through this emotional stuff, this emotional sludge in our own way. Okay, so if we can see our emotions differently, you can't see this card, unfortunately, which is such a shame. The full card here, yeah, can't see it. She's leaning over the flower of life, and the flower of life is made up of water, which is our emotions. If we can see our emotions for the very creatrixes that they are, when people are sad, it's not about getting rid of them, it's about working with them, right? Creating with them, ourselves included. On the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we have the Four of Swords, a time for rest on the Thursday, a time to be with the heart, to tend to the heart, to provide a safe environment for the heart to be expressed, to be heard, to be listened to, not to be fixed. She's not fixing the heart here. She's lying beside it. It's outside of her almost. It's almost as if we've seen these situations outside of us to show us the heartbreak that's occurring within us. Yeah, to be with that wisdom, because then on the Friday, that brings in the Ace of Swords. That brings in an unraveling of these continuous loops and a real direct focus to a way out of it, a way up and above it, in order to be able to see things differently, to see the unraveling that is happening, to see the journey that we go down to figure out what we need to feel, and we bring that back up and we create with that. Come the Friday, it is more focused, provided we don't get caught up or down in the rabbit hole. So provided we don't disassociate from our mind or try to figure it out and end up down massive loopholes, it's going to give us the structure, because the heart has been rested. It's going to give us the structure and the foundation and the focus forward. On the Saturday, that does mean we're going to come up oh, I was going to say trumps. Well, I did say trumps, right? Recognizing that we're always going to say what we were going to say anyway. Recognizing that we're always going to do what we were going to do anyway, and that so is the world at large, because that's how it's going to learn. That's how it's going to experience life. And we may not like that. That might give us a reflection of ourselves back that we don't like. That may give us a reflection back of what's going on around us that we don't like. It's not about, with the Eight of Swords, covering our own eyes here, but looking in the mirror. Looking in the mirror, what is going on? What is this triggering in me? This is the card of mastery again, so it's not about fixing it. It's about working alongside it, working with it. What does it have to teach me? On the Sunday, we then have the Seven of Pentacles. We have this beautiful growth that is occurring, that has always been occurring underneath it all, that we may not have been able to see, or most definitely haven't been nurturing in the way that it now needs. Okay, so that's nice and quick. So we have overall 2 major arcanas, and it does feel as if it could be quick. It's still a bit sticky. This week is still a bit sticky, and there's a high chance it will be until about April time. Things are unraveling and unfolding, and you know, much as we might all collectively want change, there's still this temptation to keep going back to old ways of thinking, to old ways of being, to old reactions, and there really isn't any judgment there. If you're going back and there's things to be learned and you're gaining from it, so be it. And if you're not, and you discover that and move forward, so be it. And if you're not and you choose to stay there, so be it. The key this week is whether or not we are going to remain in situations that we know are continuing to manipulate us, whether that's news stories outside, psychological priming in advertising, and God knows what that we see everywhere, which is going to get so much more ludicrous as we go along in the next few years. Literally, I think if our version from the 1980s or something, showing my age, but if our version from the 1980s was to look at how the world is going to become, not in a negative way, but in how the world thinks we see it, how naive the world thinks we are, there will be quite a shock and surprise. The truth of the matter is we're a lot more aware. We're all more aware in our own ways, whether that's with our family, relationships, ourselves, or the world. We've had chance to learn over these last 14 years. The question is, are we now willing to see that differently? To take that forward, to feel into that reality that we've become part of and start creating with it? Or are we going to stay in the old one, suggesting that there's another way? Okay, we then have 1, 2 with the King of Cups underneath, and it feels important to bring the King of Cups back to the pack. It feels important to, again, go to the wisdom of being with the light, allowing the light to come in, to sit and have time with what needs to be illuminated, spoken, because the light is blue as well. I'm finding myself wearing blue today as well. What needs to be communicated in regards to the light and how we choose to see it, ourselves included. So we have 3 cup cards. The creativity is going to come from our emotions. We have the 8 of cups, 2 of cups, and the King of cups. Can we really unite now with everything that we are feeling, form actions based on that intuitive, compassionate, collective wisdom, and gently move forward from this lone mentality that is still reverberating in ourselves on an individual and collective level. We then have 1, 2, 3 sword cards. So again, creativity can come from our mindset as well. So our mind and our emotions this week are really balanced, and they have an opportunity in that balance to create something different now. With our mind, we have the 4 of swords, the Ace of swords, and the 8 of swords, and that's where I feel this urgency to rush. The bridge between our mind and our emotions is, and always has been, our heart. To come back to that space is going to give us focus. To come back to the recognition that love itself can be a weapon for the greater good. Rather than having it used against us, we can stand in that energy. We can be in that energy. We can see that energy reflected as a result. There is the temptation to be caught in a victim mentality this week. But even that is an invitation to come back to the heart. If you find yourself thinking, oh, I can't get out of this, no matter what I do, nothing is changing. I mean, this malarkey with my teeth, literally, I cannot get antibiotics, even though I need them, because the cause is my cycles. They won't do anything for the cycles until everything is cleared up. But I can't, and it's just like this revolving circle, right? Caught in this loop. We can all get caught in that mentally. The truth of the matter is, whatever happens, my body isn't ready yet. It's still undergoing cycles. There's still things rising to be cleared. My concern as its guardian is to care for it, to nurture it. As I do so, I'm seeing different ideas coming through. I know this is about taking my power back. I know this is about the womb center, the creative center. I know this is about where I haven't had enough time with that, where I have been overstretching myself, where there are certain things that are repeating themselves in doing so that need investigation because they're having an impact on my body. That's my example. But this week, what is trying to come back to you? What power is trying to come back to you? How is it being restricted in the cycles that are playing themselves out? Be with your body, listen to its wisdom. You may not like what it's saying. It doesn't mean it's not your body's truth. We then have 1 pentacle card. So we actually have no fire cards this week, which, considering Neptune has gone into Aries, I'm kind of grateful for, really, because there's going to be enough of it going on around us and enough energy going on around us. And, you know, if you're aware of the shifts, you're probably already feeling them anyway. So this week is a chance to get our mind sorted. not sorted, but focused. Our emotions free flowing. And united with the focus, or our emotions as the focus, and allowing ourselves to see how much we have grown, so when these situations rise back up again, because they will, we're not addressing them from the people we once were. We're addressing them from the people we actually are. And in that, this unraveling gratitude for everything that we've experienced will naturally unfold, and the situation itself will start to change. Not based on the external or even the actions, but the perception we have of ourselves within it. I'm going to leave it there. Take care, and I'll see you next week.